All right, back with another one. It is Shoedogg and Mike broadcasting here from the patio at the bar. And I have to say, Mike, you told me we were going to get a little extra budget for this show to upgrade the equipment a little bit.
I did.
I didn't think that was going to mean that you yourself were going to buy a fancy new gaming chair and I was still going to be stuck on this raggedy-ass stool.
Well, we'll put you in the raffle.
Can I win a fancy gaming chair in the raffle?
You can win the stool, though.
I'm going to go leave a stool.
You could. We got more than one potty set up for you and everything. We were ready.
That's when you know you're either dealing with a doctor or your grandma. When someone, we're going to need a stool sample.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, thankfully, my grandma never asked for a stool sample.
That's not true. They have a preventative colon cancer screening now where you literally just shit in a box and mail it to them.
That's true. I've actually seen ads for that. And they're so delicate in how they try to describe the process.
There's only one lab in the country that does that test, as far as I know. And people shit in a box, and then they go, well, gotta go mail out the stool sample.
Send the stool sample in. Imagine being the FedEx guy who has to pick up all those stool samples.
I think what's better is the fact that shitting in a box and mailing it to somebody could save your life.
It could. I think it's better that we've managed to say stool sample like 8 times.
All these years we thought shitting in a box was ever only an act of like aggression or malice or whatever,
or complete clinical insanity. I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw a guy in New York City do that one time.
I'm shitting in this box and sending it to you for hope of my survival.
This ratty-looking fellow was simultaneously leaving a stool sample and digging in the garbage for his next meal. It's called multitasking when you're a New York bum. So anyway. Well, there we go. That's a good way to fly off the handle from the beginning. Let's get down to business here, celebrating the start of our 6th episode with the traditional shot. We got some Kentucky bourbon, some Jim Beam style. Cheers,
Always
my
Jim.
Man. You have a lot more than me, so that's good because I have to press the buttons of this thing.
Cheers to you.
Oh, delicious. So
smooth.
So on our last show, we did cheers to the celebration of the fact that you have a baby on the way.
Yes.
So now, as we're getting closer to that moment, my question is once we are doing podcasts while you're in the fatherly mode.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm always in the fatherly mode.
Now, don't you worry. I've actually I've worked up some backup material.
Okay.
So that
are you going to replace me with a machine like on The Simpsons? The DJ 3000 or whatever? The podcast 200?
Shoedogg, that was hilarious. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, I'll be like my own Ed McMahon.
Insert cough.
No, actually, I've been working on some solo material for these moments where, like, let's say you have to go change a poopy diaper, and we don't believe in editing. We like shit to be raw around here.
True.
Within a fair amount of reason, warts and all, not including that one that I had burned off my back a few months back. But either way, so material that I have lined up for when Mike's on daddy duty. First, of course, there'll be various moments where I'll simply break into song, which I know you can't wait for that. But more importantly, I have been writing a one-man show. And all you listeners, stay tuned for this, because once Mike has to run off and take care of business and we're doing a show, you are going to be treated to excerpts and monologues from my upcoming Broadway play, Life as a Ginger.
Sounds like a real 3-ring operation you got going there.
You mean a 3-ring circus?
I didn't want to use it. You know what you're jealous of? You're jealous that your stool doesn't recline.
Everything works just fine with my stool. No, God, no falling asleep here now. That's a little too comfortable, I think.
You should shit in a box and mail it out and see which stool is better.
I'm afraid of what the results would tell me. Sir, you really need to change your diet from bacon and cigarettes and strong beer. No, I don't.
Yeah, maybe stop using hot sauce as your condiment for everything you eat.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Including cereal. I've heard that's actually ultimately bad for your whole deal down there.
Just hot sauce in general?
Well, yeah, if you're somebody that eats a ton of really spicy food. But then how could that be possible? Look how big India is, and they eat nothing but spicy food over there. Everything's got curry in it and chili powder.
Well, yes, but you see, all that spicy food is counteracted by the cholera-infested water that they're drinking. So their body is able to fight off unique unique illnesses and parasites.
Cholera-infested water.
Right? Cholera?
Are you campaigning to be a speechwriter in 2020 for somebody in particular with that statement? Cholera-infested.
You're one of them people that take baths in the shitty water.
Yeah. You must be from one of those shithole countries.
Well,
you cholera drinker.
Well, all of our listeners will be thrilled to know that it took us exactly 5 minutes and 30 seconds to break our vow to not talk about the orange twat waffle this week.
Oh, I didn't say anybody's name.
Oh, neither did I guess, technically.
Who are you talking about?
Some overblown narcissistic buffoon who they like to put on TV to say crazy shit all the time.
That's the great thing about big puffy white clouds is you can make them look like whatever you want. So if you stick with saying... but person.
A stool sample is still a stool sample, and when the stool sample is voted into the presidency, we got a problem.
Oh, by the way, the shit in the box thing is also covered by your insurance, so you should totally look into it. It's free. Nobody's going to make you buy a box to shit in. You get a shit box complimentary as part of Obamacare.
I'm worried enough, if we're going to talk about preventative treatment, I'm only 2 years away from getting the old... the old double finger, the old prostate massage.
You're gonna get blasted.
I've
heard a lot of people blow a big load when they get the prostate exam.
Well, I don't know.
It's the male G-spot back there.
Well,
It is.
I think most people understand that, but we don't need to go into great detail. But if we're going to talk about that, here's the scary thing. I had to go to a urologist one time, a ball doctor, if you will.
Yeah. I've been there. I've been to one of them.
And when I was at the ball doctor, you just realize that it's, in some ways, it's like a fast food service window, quick in and out, because right there on the counter of the ball doctor's office was the box of rubber gloves and the bottle of KY. This guy has got the permanent setup to slip you the finger and move you out the door as quickly as possible.
He charges extra if you want some of the KY that has like a really unique... It's like
the warming gel,
or the ketchup KY that you can then put on your food.
Well, if you've got the really good insurance, he has this special glove. But I mean, you have to have like the gold plan, the platinum plan on your Blue Cross to get that shit.
Oh man, that's terrible to know. Yeah, way harder than shitting in a box.
Speaking of things that come in boxes, something that is not shitty that comes in a box that has me excited lately.
Okay.
Excited as a 6-year-old in the cereal aisle. The return of fucking Frankenberry.
That's pretty exciting.
Because he was at that one, Count Chocula and Boo Berry. They used to be around when we were kids.
If you set them loose this Halloween, they will sell through the fucking roof.
Well, that's exactly right. And then for a good, I don't know how many years they were gone. And then the last few years, they bring them back just in the fall for like a limited run. So now all of a sudden, it's like you get that 2 or 3 trips to the grocery store, it's there. It's like, give me 6 fucking boxes of Frankenberry, because I'm sorry, that stuff is awesome, good cereal. There's like nothing else out there like it, strawberry marshmallows and the whatnot.
Well, admittedly,
it's a sugar rush in a box, but it's got milk, so cereal therefore is healthy because you put milk on it.
Exactly, and cereal companies don't have to be creative in their marketing because they're pretty much, their marketing is like, what's in this fucking box.
Sugar, sugar, sugar.
Well, it's all the same. Like,
well, hold on. Do we want the System of a Down version? Sugar! Or do we want the Archie's version? Sugar, sugar. Hold on, I'm going to try that again.
I think both of those sounded like you were at the ball doctor when you sang them.
Or do we want the Archie's version? Sugar, sugar. Yeah, well, and it only took 9 minutes to break the promise of not singing. You're welcome.
No, you wondered about it. You didn't know if it was going to happen or not.
Isn't that... Shit, where did I see it?
See what?
Oh, Jericho. He's using "You're welcome" now as a catchphrase. Yeah, AEW is successful. You're welcome.
Right. Well, everybody owes him a thank you. That's his new heel job.
Well, he
makes such a great heel, though. I mean, imagine all the heels he's played. I mean, I can't even think of a time when he was a face where I was all about... Except, I don't know, maybe when was he a face when he first started doing the list thing?
No.
Okay.
No, he hasn't been a face in, God, I bet a good 10 years.
We all do owe him a thank you.
I mean, you're right in that he was certainly popular, but I believe he was still technically a heel during that whole run, the thing with Kevin Owens.
To me, what makes that genius heel work is that we do owe him a thank you. and it's such brilliant shit because everybody, all the baby faces are going to come back and say, well, no, we all did this together, but he is technically not wrong.
No,
when he says, you all owe me a thank you, he's kind of humble bragging.
He's their anchor, and it fits his character.
Heel humble bragging.
And he's wonderful. And, hey, dude, maybe you are welcome. Whoever, and no one person gets the credit for that. That is the epitome of an ensemble cast going on in AEW. I mean, yes, Jericho is the one with the most mainstream name value, for certain. We're nearing the debut of their TV show Wednesdays on TNT. We got our tickets for week 3 in Philly. I mean, I think
pumped.
Virtually every show, if not every single show that they've put on sale thus far, has sold out. The show hadn't even begun airing yet, and they've, sold out, closing in on 10 weeks worth of episodes. It's pretty doggone incredible, man.
It's epic.
And on top of that, now, it didn't take Vince McMahon long to try to squelch him like a bug by putting NXT on USA's Wednesday night head-to-head. Having to do what he bitched about WCW doing to him.
You are right.
Going completely head-to-head, and
well, it's halfway head-to-head because it's not like he's throwing Raw against it. He's throwing NXT against it.
Yeah, but you know what? NXT's audience is probably more overlapping with the potential AEW audience than the Raw audience.
Well, gee, you think that's why they did the whole throne-smashing gimmick at the one show?
Well, Cody decided that he was going to poke the bear.
Who else is enough of a dipshit to constantly do entrances as like a king of some ancient dead skeleton people or whatever?
Oh yeah, there was the ones where he was like Conan the Barbarian. There was the one where he was like the Terminator. His grand entrances for Triple H.
I only wish, speaking of Jericho, who we do owe thanks to, I wish that Jericho could have been around doing his feud with Triple H when Triple H decided to bring Stephanie out on that big... It wasn't even a motorcycle. It had like a...
She was in the sidecar, wasn't she, basically?
It was like a 3-wheeler or something, but remember how hoard up she was for that? And at that point, it was really being hoard up because she was already in her 40s.
More hoard up than usual?
Well, but remember Jericho's shit? When she was still kind of innocent looking?
Hold on. Let's see if I can pull one out of my ass. You no good, dirty, disgusting, bottom-feeding, two-for-a-nickel cash change back trash bag hoe. And on that same note, do you remember the commercial for one of the old SmackDown games that had Jericho reviewing the video of it, and they showed Stephanie's boobs, and he goes, "I think they need more polygons." Yeah,
and for me, just watching all this shit go down, and well, going to a show is always fun. I don't care what the context is. It doesn't have to be a major promotion. Going to wrestling shows is a good time. How much fun do we have at the Brawl Under the Bridge?
Exactly. A couple hundred people indie shows can be an absolute fucking blast in their own way, but I'm pretty sure a 10,000-seat AEW live show is going to be pretty spectacular. Speaking, one more thing on Jericho before we move on from him. We do have to throw a shout-out to fucking Chris Jericho here, man. Talk is Jericho. The multifaceted... I'm going to go so far, and I'm not saying this to like lick his balls or get a retweet or a plug or anything, but Chris Jericho is legitimately, in the world we live in today, is there any more somebody who can qualify as a Renaissance man? Who has successfully dabbled, 4 books written, a band that started as a joke but became quite legitimate, the wrestling career, various acting gigs, varying, reinventing himself as a wrestling character many times over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's like a chameleon, and he's just so fucking talented. And it took him a while to get his due, and he worked his ass off. He's one of the last handful of guys coming up through Smoky Mountain and ECW, and wrestling in Japan and Mexico, who really came up on the old school kind of indie circuit, territory circuit.
I think my favorite, truthfully, whether you're a fanboy or not, pretty much everybody has to acknowledge, like, from past to present, how much ass he's really kicked. However...
I thought you were going to say how much ass he got.
Maybe that, too. I don't know. But the whole thing with that is we're the benefactors. it's a good time to be a wrestling fan.
Yes.
We went through. You could say we went through a dark period. Was it a dim?
Very dark.
It was dark for you. Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, because I haven't had truly, active, weekly interest in WWE in a couple years. And, what was my quote at the end of Double or Nothing? I said, first I called it the best wrestling pay-per-view I'd seen in 15 years, which it fucking was. And then I said, as I posted on Facebook, I said, thank you, AEW, for making me a wrestling fan again. And that's how I felt that night. I was watching the most legitimate wrestling pay-per-view that I'd seen in so many years and was so entertained and so gripped by every minute of that. And, now the weekly TV show is on the way to happening. And now the truth will be in the pudding of their storytelling.
A quick question before we do something else. What do you think in 20 years, now that AEW has a legit TV deal and we know they're going head-to-head already, are we going to have more dark periods, or is this, like you said, Renaissance Man about Jericho, is this a renaissance for wrestling fans? I think it could be. I think as long as people don't totally derail the train. Like Vince gets all crazy and senile and old and starts, doing some ridiculous stuff that's off-brand and off-color or whatnot, but... Otherwise, I think this is a good time to watch.
I think we wouldn't mind if he started doing stuff that was off-color again.
And it's crazy how WWE is all PG now. So, since AEW is going to be more edgy, it's almost like
blood and guts.
Vince has assumed the position of 90s WCW, but now AEW is like WWF was in 1996, right? They're going to be the edgy one.
Well, yeah. Well, in that regard, I thought you were going for a different
no, but that's what Vince is saying. Vince's long-term business plan
is to keep
nice. WWE something that everybody can theoretically watch.
Yep, exactly.
And not have to worry about people dropping F-bombs or like power bombing a totally frail chick through a table from 20 feet up or something.
Well, we might not see any of that.
I hope not. We've moved on. Wrestling audiences get a bad rap for being somewhat immature, maybe some toxic masculinity going on in there.
They're out there, though. Some of them are.
I remember, I want to quickly throw out, I told you I was watching some old shit, some old matches. Mm-hmm. And I think we can all kind of agree that it was pretty cool when we still had these wrestlers who were, they were men's men. They weren't these Corey Graves, Seth Rollins looking people, Yep.
Underwear models.
Well, or worse.
And they certainly don't look like someone you'd be afraid of in an actual fight.
Well, not that like a guy who is going to bounce his wife's head off a cabinet door is not toxic masculinity, but more like, I think of like the Stan Hansens, the Terry Gordys, the Bobby Eatons of the world.
You mean the toxic masculinity that also makes a guy want to have a rapid-fire, semi-automatic, if not fully automatic, blow-them-down weapon in their hands? That kind of toxic masculinity?
Well, I mean, that's part of it, but wrestling has to be... If you're going to have a family show, then you probably shouldn't have these... and I don't think the reality shows help. The Total Divas and shit, where they're supposedly off-script and this is their actual lives.
Which is probably no more legit than what you see on the wrestling show, which is the irony of the whole thing.
We all know reality TV is not reality.
Not at all. Well, and that's the funny thing. You can argue wrestling is more real than that just because of, the athleticism that is involved in it.
Well, I'll say
they're doing it all dead live.
My hopes are that in 20 years, I'm still watching wrestling. That's what I hope.
Wrestling will survive, and, and thanks to things like the network, even if we become those old codgers who... Our only wrestling is looking back at like WrestleMania 14 and reliving the excitement, then so be it. One more real quick thing.
What?
I wanted to squeeze it in before when we were still on the AEW NXT Wednesday Night Battle. Let it be said that, WWE have actually set themselves up to potentially fail. Because now AEW can actually straight up win the head-to-head ratings battles. I mean, we have the Monday Night Wars again now. We have the Wednesday Night War is in effect. So, out of the chute, first week.
Ratings?
First week, NXT versus AEW. Don't give me a number, but who do you think wins?
AEW in a landslide.
I won't go landslide, but I'll say
I think
wins.
NXT stands a better chance to have consistently high ratings, but I think AEW's first TNT episode is going to be one of the most viewed things ever. Because if you think back to the peak of the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, there would be episodes where you just knew, like, okay, this week, there's no question I'm watching Nitro.
Yeah, you knew what was coming up.
You're like, I'm not even going to bother switching over. I'm just going to watch this shit.
Yeah, well, that part's cool. The fact
and isn't that ultimately a good thing if those times come back for us?
Yeah, the
option.
option.
We're like, which one are you going to watch?
Yeah. Where's the better match?
Each other. Hey, when you're not watching wrestling all the time, Shoedogg, are you like one of those people like me I'm getting older and now I kind of move my glasses around my nose? But do you read it all? Do you read anything?
You break out your bifocals so you can actually, like a book, like a paper book?
You're reading, well, it could be a book, it could be electronic book.
Dude, I still go old school. I've always got a couple books going on at any given time.
I feel like those times where I'm starting to fall into a YouTube hole on a topic, I usually then end up, pivoting to a book.
Well, that's the problem. We discussed this in the past, just this world we live in with so much instant gratification and so many choices of things streaming on our fingertips. The concept of I'm going to pick up a book for a couple hours... It requires willpower.
I know you've been into autobiographies and stuff, but are you reading anything right now?
Well, you've busted me for that. Well, yeah, my two current books isn't what we call the deepest thing, but I did pick up the latest opus from Howard Stern.
Nice.
Howard Stern Comes Again is the title. Of course it would be.
Always been a big Stern fan, always will be.
And now this is different from his past books, I never read Miss America. I did read Private Parts back in the day, which was an incredibly fun book. And, obviously made a classic fucking movie. So, yeah, there's no doubt that some of that stuff in that era, being a Stern fan, led me down the road of, hey, maybe I can talk into a microphone for a living. Not that I ever had goals to be that big. But, so this new book by Stern, it's actually it's not 500 pages of dick and fart jokes.
I would take that, too.
Yeah.
I'd give it a look either way.
That's right. It's actually a collection
Where'd
of
interviews.
Where'd you get it? Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
It's readily available.
Is it like with their new releases
It was still on the new release rack. Yep.
Maybe I'll give it a look.
It's a collection of interviews he's done on his show, but more so from the last 10 years, where, as he writes in the introduction segment, he found a lot of self-reflection and a lot more introspectiveness than just, the way he used to be shock jock era Howard Stern. And how that's now coming through in his interviews with people, in that he's, really trying to dig in a little bit more. And, it's not just, how many times did you bang your wife last night? I'm sure that still comes up occasionally.
If it's ever 2 for me, that's amazing in itself. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about something else.
Well, you're married, so 2 in a month is generally keeping above the curve anymore.
What fucking married people do you hang out with? No. One of the best things about being married is getting laid on a regular.
Well, I guess I'm just accustomed to hearing the old cranky married couples version of, once you put a ring on it, you ain't going to get it again.
That's an urban legend. That's an old wives' tale.
And it more particularly seems to apply to the blowy.
Not true. False. 100% false.
You know what? You got yourself one of them little sexed up.
Does Howard Stern talk about that in his book at all?
His wife giving him blowies?
Or just about his marriage or shit like that?
Not his. I mean, some of the subjects in there, I mean, it's a who's who of every entertainment. Plus, he tried to make it somewhat topical. He includes segments from his interview with Harvey Weinstein. He also has a nice segment that shows up multiple times throughout the book entitled, And Now a Word from Our President.
Oh, Jesus.
Where he highlights passages of various Trump appearances from over the years.
That has to be good.
Which do not always, needless to say, show Donald in the greatest of light. I mean, that's sort of...
How can you do that? What do you mean they don't always? How can anybody do it at all now?
Well, it's funny because in the earlier episodes, in the earlier interviews, which were from like the Apprentice era, Donnie is still like in his, you talk about the Miss America thing, that fat cow and all that stuff.
Well, but that's the point. At what point was he not a total scumbag?
When he was finally running for president, because there's a couple later segments in there.
I see.
And Howard's trying to get him to play old school Donnie, and Trump's like, I shouldn't be talking like that now.
That sounds ridiculous.
Grab him by the pussy.
There is something to be said for autobiographies. I think that's cool because in your mind, no matter what, even if somebody comes out and says, oh, so-and-so's biography told a lie about me, even still, you're pretty much thinking, this is information from a primary source. And that's what makes it so attractive.
Exactly, and I've just never had the mind for fantasy and fiction reading. Yeah. It's just never, ever been something I can dig into. But a good, juicy biography or any type of historical book, things like that.
I'm reading a book, too.
That looks thick.
Full disclosure, I'm chipping away at it. The book I'm reading is called Behave, written by a great mind. His name is Robert Sapolsky. And the reason...
Cheers to Robert Sapolsky with this Sam Adams...
I didn't even tell you about the book yet.
Summer Ale. He sounds smart. I'm sure that's a wonderful book. What's it all about?
Well, basically, I discovered him not by reading his work, but by seeing a bunch of spliced together interviews that were done with him that ended up becoming part of a documentary.
Okay.
And in the documentary, he is talking all about the... It's basically, with all the science, lingo, and everything stripped away, it's a book about what makes us tick. But he approaches it, his background, and I think still current profession, is that he's a primatologist.
Explain.
He studies the physical, medical, societal, cultural, all-inclusive, holistic view of primates. Chimpanzees, human beings, primate creatures. Exactly. And he has a huge knowledge... thick doctor-level knowledge, obviously, because he's a professor, or he was a professor, I'm not sure. But it's all about basically getting into the actual neuroscience of our behavior. And that's why I think he calls it the biology of humans at our best and worst.
That's very intriguing.
But it's coming from, what makes it different for me is, number one, his prose in this book so far is fucking awesome. You don't feel like you're reading a college textbook.
Yeah.
You feel like you're reading a novel. But then the other thing is that having that angle of being a primatologist, what I will say, though, is I'm getting off to a slow start with this book, man, because...
I was going to bust your balls. It looks like that fold-over flap's got you on about page 15, but since you bring it up,
fold-over flap is right here.
Oh, you're at the... Oh, I saw it backwards. I'm sorry. You're at the back end, then.
Because, no.
Oh.
if you're not a neurologist or an anthropologist or something... You probably need to... He tells you flat out in the beginning, read these couple of appendices before you even fuck with this book.
So go backwards. Read the what's there, like definitions in there?
It's
things
to
like
give
that?
you like a more than commoner's understanding of neurology.
He looks like a combination of the Beard and Brash.
Oh, dude, I get the feeling that... I don't want to say anything...
He just looks like a bright fellow.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about him.
Or Hagrid.
I wouldn't want to spread misinformation because I don't know the guy, but I kind of got the impression that he might be a little bit of a germaphobe, because I remember, like, if you think about how often Joe Rogan does a podcast outside of his studio.
I'm guessing he doesn't really, because he has to have that controlled environment.
And how often Sam Harris does a podcast where he's even in a studio. Like, Sam Harris, for as big as his podcast is, he has one of the smallest... production setups you could imagine. It's basically like him in his little office or whatever, and he never has anybody in the room with him usually, as far as I know. He, and I think Joe Rogan, but we'll check, both went to this guy. They had to do their episode from his house. So I feel like he might be a germaphobe.
Okay.
Because he's not infirmed where he like can't leave because he's sick or injured or something.
And so these people who generally don't travel for their shows travel to talk to him.
But yeah, so I decided I would take a big...
matter then.
I wanted to take a big swing at his work because, I don't know, you ever like... Here's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
People who read, they read to give their mind a direction. And
exactly.
my feeling with reading nonfiction shit has always been, if I'm in that kind of a state of mind, then I might as well benefit from it by learning a whole bunch of shit, as opposed to hearing a really cool story.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I hardly read fiction. I do read fiction, but I also learn stuff from fiction usually. But this dude seems to have it all figured out, I hate to say. And he's got some excellent reviews. And I got this actually as a Christmas present. Don't know if the person who got it for me bought it in a bookstore or off the internet, but it doesn't really matter. Because,
it doesn't matter.
Like I learned...
It doesn't matter
when I used
where your book was bought.
Well, you read on your own. You're an independent reader. I'm someone who typically, the the most reading I did was when I was a student.
All right, so that site is the page you're actually on.
Correct. I stopped here because he said, wait,
that's where he said,
before you even have a clue what's going on, because he's talking about the macro organization of the brain.
So it's like a choose-your-own-adventure book. You got to go from the front to the back?
It's not a choose-your-own-adventure. It's if you don't read this shit first, you're going to have no clue what I'm talking about. You're going to waste your time.
Was that your other bookmark underneath the book there?
I don't know. But anyway, give that when you want to do some crazy nonfiction shit, give that one a look. And I'll try the Howard Stern thing.
We'll trade off at the end. Well, the Howard Stern book, I'm not going to lie.
Different.
Like most gentlemen, where all the good reading takes place.
Difference is...
That's a good bathroom book. That's not a bathroom book.
Well, okay, fine. But to your point, when you talk about a book and its sales, think about all the people that are going to buy Howard Stern's book because they want to read it, which is a lot of people. And then think about how many people are just going to buy his book in hopes that they can one day get him to autograph it.
It's
now, this type of author is not going to have people lining up just to get a book signed.
Right. The book's not being bought based on his name value.
They're either going to read it or they don't know shit about him. Except for people like me who saw him in... The documentary I saw him in was called... It was part of the Zeitgeist trilogy.
There's 3 of them now? I knew there was a sequel.
The third one's pretty old at this point. I think it's like 7 or 8 years old. But yeah, they did a third one, and he was interviewed in it talking about like how... Just crazy shit, man. He was talking about how you can be negatively impacted for life by shit that happens while you're still in utero.
Huh.
And all this crazy... Like, he started peeling back the layers of the onion.
Like you can be traumatized at that moment of life yet.
Oh, it's such a great read.
Huh.
It really is. Give it a whirl.
Intriguing.
You can do big books, right? You read pretty fast.
Oh, yeah, it's not a matter of the length. What's the actual page count there? Oh, well, it's got reasonably big writing.
God knows. Well, you got to find where the appendix starts.
What page are the pictures?
There's no pictures, dude.
Take that back.
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Well, you're going to mock me even more when we get to my second book.
What's your second book?
But it's a glorious book. It's called Console Wars by Blake Harrison.
Is he a video game historian?
It is a very much... It's a novelized version of the 90s Nintendo Sega War, compiled. It's sort of like an oral history. It's like a combination of that and a narrative, because it's all built around a lot of quotations and interviews and stuff with these people, but it's written like as a, dramatic fiction, as it were. But it's fascinating as hell, because, I mean, in our world, it was like, oh, who's got a Sega? Who's got an SNES? And this is what's great about geekdom these days. Is because, like, shit like video games, we can go online. I love some of the Historic Gaming Quarterly. There's some great documentaries on various systems and stuff online. Books about the history of video games. So, we're now researching the silly, goofy shit from when we were kids. And, it's interesting, and there's so many people delving into that stuff, be it YouTube or even in books. There's another one called The Full History of Video Gaming. The Complete or whatever it's called, and that one like goes all the way back to fucking pre-Pong eras. That's very legit.
I don't go back that far. I go back as far as the Atari 2600. That's where my life as a gamer officially began. But if you want to talk about actually playing games, not just whirling with something because somebody lets you, Nintendo Entertainment System, dude. That was my...
It all started with the original.
Born by Fire. I remember my brother wouldn't let me tag along with him when he would play Super Mario Brothers in his room.
How dare he?
My sorry, nerdy gamer ass would stand in the hallway. You can picture me as a little kid, right?
Ugly
with my hands
bastard.
On my knees, leaning over, looking through the... I'm not shitting you. Looking through the crack of his bedroom door, over his shoulder, to watch him play Super Mario Brothers.
So you mean kind of like trying to maybe like catch your older brother like having his girlfriend's titties out? You were trying to watch him play Super Mario Brothers,
right? In a way,
that was the big. You're not allowed to have this, but I'm gonna sneak me some moment.
Dude,
not the best analogy. I think
Legend of Zelda. Well, remember, I wasn't one of those lucky kids who got Nintendo right when it came out, because my parents made the rare upgrade for Russ. He got an Atari 2600, and then before he got a Nintendo, he got an Atari 5200. which not everybody had.
I was going to say he actually had the 5200 was rather rare.
He had both.
The 7600 had a bit of
You want to talk about rare gaming consoles? I wonder if it's mentioned in this book anywhere. Russ and I are some of the only people I've ever met who owned a Magnavox CDI gaming system.
Probably not in the book because it doesn't relate to that narrative, but yeah, the CDI was not a successful system.
Do you know when you're off to a bad start? When you're off to a bad start launching a console is when your first two games that come pre-packaged with it are a tennis game and an encyclopedia.
Well, that was the whole marketing gimmick. Well, the thing costs like $600 or $700.
Oh, that's just it.
So they had to market it as a multimedia educational
big whiff,
almost like a computer.
It was supposed to be a computer for people who didn't want to, like set up another
combination of gaming and computing.
You're exactly right.
Well,
except then they tried to jump on the gaming bandwagon, and they started coming out with all these, well, you probably are old enough
Well, they might fit in that book, you're right, because Nintendo did co-op with them for a hot minute.
Well, think of it this way.
They made a Mario game.
People listening to this podcast, if you already haven't figured out how big of fucking nerds Shoedogg and I are for our extensive knowledge of all things wrestling and video games, then
we play Magic, but we'll try not to talk about that.
Then let me edify some of you out there. We are old enough to understand a format that is dead and gone called video CD. It was a thing, and in the early days of video gaming, barely. that was video gaming's first attempt at making quote unquote realistic video games.
I mean, so you're just talking like Sega CD,
Sewer Shark, Scottie Pippen's Windy City Jam, Mortal Kombat 2, which not only required Sega CD but 32X as well.
There was the boxing game Prize Fighter, Corpse Killer. Yeah, those full motion video games. I kind of dug them.
Well, Magnavox CDI was basically all video CD.
Yeah.
So then they came out with Burn Cycle. They came out with The Seventh Guest, which was basically like a Myst type of game, but with a murder mystery in it.
Yeah. So they were more PC-style games.
Dude, it was so legit. And it had this weird-ass controller that was basically... It kind of looked like a remote control for a massage chair or something, with, I think, 3 or 4 buttons in a circle and then a button in the middle. And you could do everything with it. There was no keyboard. There was no clicking per se. You just used it. And it was 95, I want to say. It was kind of right smack in the middle of when people were transitioning from Sega and Super Nintendo over to PlayStation and give me the 32-bit Nintendo system real quick.
There wasn't one. It went from Super Nintendo to N64.
Okay, so this might have been pre-64.
Yeah, it would have been.
But right in the thick of Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation time. Because I remember after the CDI bombed and took a big shit, we
in a box, big shit in a box.
We went to a video store. This is something that some of you who are younger might also never have heard of. A video store.
Make it a Blockbuster.
Was where you didn't have to stand behind some indecisive old person in the elements while they decided which movie to rent. You could go into a climate-controlled building and not only get your shit, but also some candy, some popcorn. You could maybe walk in the porn section if you were old enough. You can't do that anymore because everybody just wants to clicky.
Well, you can clicky, and it's there, and people will never... Well, remember a few years back when I had that cockamamie idea to open up a video store again?
Nevertheless...
A rental store, I should say, because it would have been...
When we got off of the Magnavox, before we bought another console, there was a video store that let us rent consoles. Mm-hmm. So we tried Sega Saturn first, and then we tried Sony PlayStation, and only after that did we end up buying the PlayStation, and needless to say, I've been a PlayStation person ever since.
Well, during that era, so you're the only person I know who had a CD. Our buddy Rich is the only person I know, I think, who had the 32X.
He had the Sega Channel. Holy shit, the very first on-demand gaming service.
That was so far ahead of its time.
You had to
understand it.
Because you literally had to get it through your coax, I think.
Well, that and probably
it was
a phone
before
line.
internet.
Still 56K in some fashion.
whatever you want to.
But so those two systems accounted for. Do you remember the other grossly failed system from the early 90s around that era?
There were many. I remember the TurboGrafx 16. I remember the Jaguar. I remember the Neo Geo system.
Wow, you're right. You went way deep. Okay, well, the one that I was thinking that was really like a CDI Direct sort of competitor that you didn't name, the 3DO. the thing the 3DO did, which was different, was the 3DO brand wasn't owned by a specific company. Like many different companies made 3DO systems, like Magnavox and a couple of others. Like the people that created it licensed the technology to other companies to make a 3DO system.
Did you learn that from that book?
The other history of gaming book that I speak of, yes.
But this book here, Console Wars, do they talk about like the obscure shit in there?
It's obscure, but it's so directly based on the Sega Nintendo relationship. You know, talking about the executives and things like advertising campaigns, like. You know, kind of fascinating stuff that you don't think about.
It might be worth a read. What do you say?
Because Sega, I think it's well.
Well, let me ask you this: if we were going to do a book trade and you were going to tackle this, which I think would take balls, would you rather see me go through the Stern book or this one? Because I can't do both. I ain't got that kind of time.
I don't know.
Well, which one do you think is more friendly to the casual reader?
Probably still the Stern book. I mean, because you can get a little bit of stuff from all kinds of people. When you see all the people interviewed in that book, you'll be very impressed.
You got yourself a deal.
But Console Wars is definitely a very fun read. That I'm about in the middle of, and I mean Howard Stern is something that because of its very design, you do jump around. Like I want to read this interview, I want to read that interview. Yeah, I read all the presidential shit kind of first, going down along the line. So speaking of presidential shit,
oh God.
No, not about him.
Everyone who's listening, please, as a preface, check out Bernie Thoughts on Twitter. Follow him. He has masterfully concocted a list of tweets, or rather sound bites, for those of us who aren't 10, that would play really well with his voice. As you all know, Shoedogg has kind of like a boiling pot of water bubbled over with some Bernie Sanders impersonations that are not to be missed. I thought it would be fun if we got you to check out some Bernie Thoughts sound bites, and maybe you could do those.
Do them in character, actually.
If you want to give it a crank. What do you feel? How do you? Are you up for that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So, again, Bernie Thoughts on Twitter. I think what adds to the visual experience, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the fact that everything's in all caps. It helps the yell. It helps the yell, does it not?
You need good inflection, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
Inflect your voice. Because you see, when I first grew up in this world, the microphone was not invented, and you simply had to yell and scream at people. So anyway, I'd like to share these are thoughts on life, ideas of what happens as we go through your day.
Do you mind if I cherry pick some and you can give him a crank? You can give him a shot?
We're gonna do. You're gonna put him in order.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a link to Bernie Thoughts' Twitter in the description below. For those of you watching on YouTube, we're also gonna put in the comments. We're gonna put some of the ones that didn't make the cut. If you want to give him a shot, tell us how you think Bernie would say it if you want. But you and I cherry picked. We know Bernie. Well, you know Bernie way better than I do because you watch him on TV.
Vote for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. Bernie will out-yell Donald Trump. I'll be more New York than that phony motherfucker could ever pretend to be. I've never had no money in my life. And he's had nothing but money given to him by his wealthy father.
Wait a minute. I thought Bernie Sanders was rich.
He has a wealthy father. I am not rich. I am nominally wealthy. I am upper middle class, Mike. Do not accuse me of being some 1%er.
I just can't.
Now, on to my thoughts of the day.
Okay.
Here's what I'd like to know.
I'm sitting out.
Here's my opinion on this.
Yeah.
Going out is the necessary evil because then it allows us the pleasure of going home. And when you're my age, there is nothing better than going home. The only problem is when you also get to my age, people seem to like to use the phrase going home as a euphemism for kicking the big one. And I'm not ready to kick the big one yet, except for the big fat ass of Donald Trump come November 2020. Now, here's what else I'd like to say right now. Here's what I don't understand. If birds are ancient, then not only have they watched us evolve, they have allowed it.
They're the last dinosaurs, Bernie. Well, you might be the last dinosaur.
And speaking of birds, a duck with 4 legs. What's up with a duck with 4 legs?
I don't know.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Is this gonna win me any support, or people who just think I'm even more of a crazy old frizzy-haired Jew?
I don't know who's gonna. You might have just won equal support for Larry David.
Hold on, I've got more here. Yogurt spends millions each year lobbying, trying to convince us it's not just warmed up ice cream.
Oh, you should have
Prove me
campaigned on
wrong.
that. You should have campaigned on it.
I will campaign on that. I'm going to give everybody, all those hippie stoners who want to vote for me, I'm going to give y'all some warmed up Ben and Jerry's. Don't they have a Bernie flavor? It's got little pieces. It's got...
I'm not even going to say that.
Make sure that you guys let us know on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook if you want Shoedogg to offer his services.
Offer
for
my cervical?
You guys to be able to get Bernie coded greetings and birthday wishes and so forth.
Oh, for
Congratulations.
crying out loud.
Yes, he will do it. He says he doesn't care if you can't see him. He'll even put on the wig. He wants to be hunched over like Bernie.
Well,
He's even going to point his finger at some unseen person while he does it.
Hold
just
on.
so you know it's good.
What if I raise my arms in a gesture of being just completely verklempt about the situation?
It's so overwhelming.
I think I embody Bernie almost like Bill Hader embodies people.
I'll tell you.
Become Bernie.
I was getting a little nervous there.
Bernie.
I thought for a minute
I lost my notes.
I thought I was gonna go
Our
ahead
very deep notes. Hold on.
I thought I was gonna turn around and open my eyes, and Bernie was gonna be sitting right next to me on the stool. That's what it felt like.
Well, if you smell the dill pickle, you're halfway right.
Oh my God! We gotta. Maybe some of you can shoot us an idea or two. We gotta find excuses.
Put Bernie in some
Bernie
scenarios.
Bernie needs to be like the guy that you go to every episode, like the weatherman or something. Ooh, weather with Bernie. Yes.
Oh, let me tell you something. If the goddamn corporations would stop filling our air with all of these fossil fuels, the goddamn global warming would go away, and we'd be able to go back to what I prefer, which is slacks and long sleeve shirt weather in July.
Jeez.
You gave it to me.
Since you're a socialist, let me ask you something. What do you think of the socio-political implications of a pay-per-view called The King of the Ring? Doesn't that seem wrong? We can't have kings. They hoard the wealth. They keep the working class under their foot.
There's been nothing worse in the history of humankind than monarchies. It's just a bunch of inbred fucks who don't want to give up the power. Kind of like the Trump family.
Okay.
All right, so anyway, yes. Got one more thing here, and it does involve a wrestling personality.
Okay.
Now, last show, you played for me the videos of Bill Hader changing his face into these various celebrity concoctions.
Still gives me the willies.
It was pretty ridiculous.
Did you go back and watch it on your own?
Yes, yeah, no, I did see him again, yep.
Just for everyone else's sake in our audience, we're going to throw a link.
Yeah, we got to put those links back up there.
Yep, exactly. We're going to repost the link to the Bill Hader impersonations videos in the comments section and also on Twitter.
All right, now I probably won't be able to post the link to this particular video that I'm about to play because I had to find it in the deep realms of the internet.
Okay.
Now, Mike, do you know what Cameo is?
You know I know what Cameo is.
I know you know what Cameo is. Do we want to tell the backstory just without going into too deep a backstory? Just
Sure. So
okay.
I wanted to send you a message and make it a fun video greeting, and I was contemplating the internet has so many fun video greeting options. Cameo is probably the most well-known one, and of course they have a robust selection of pro wrestling connected personalities. They have refs, they have managers, they have wrestlers.
It's got everything from current stars to has-beens to never-wases.
So rather than like you and I...
And there were some never-wases. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy who has the nerve to charge you $50 for a video message? I never even heard of the guy.
We always get super sidetracked when we talk about anything, and we needed to have a serious conversation. So I figured maybe an easier way to get it started would be we're all tuned into this Cameo video, and I went and communicated with Tommy Dreamer who
ECW legend.
He was gracious enough to not only fulfill, but I gotta say, he went fucking above and beyond. I remember sending a message to him and telling him that I didn't want him to say what's up to you or whatever. I wanted him to cut a promo, and I'll be fucking damned if he didn't straight up cut a promo.
He made it sound like he was ready to fight me at the ECW arena next Saturday night.
It was fucking terrific.
It was amazing. It was the coolest treat I could possibly imagine. So that being said,
okay,
this video from Cameo got loose on the internet the other day, and it is a birthday message for somebody.
Okay.
From the legendary WCW NWA Jim Crockett Promotions announcer, host of What Happened When podcast, hosted by our lovely, our much admired friend, the Podfather Conrad Thompson.
Oh boy.
And his podcasting empire. And he's got one with Tony Schiavone. And this, my friends, this is what Tony Schiavone sent to somebody on the Cameo.
For their birthday?
For their birthday wishes.
I'm really excited to watch this.
Oh
my God, he's got a full-on fucking Ulysses S. Grant.
I hope this turns out well. I'll booger it up however much I need to.
It's not a Fu Manchu if the beard is connected to the mustache, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's just the way the coloring is. Yeah, he's got like a fake Fu Manchu.
He looks like he's ready to sign a treaty to end the Civil War. Go ahead.
Oh, that's what he's about to do. All right.
I want to see it.
It's Tony Schiavone from What Happened When, and formerly World Championship Wrestling. A very special happy birthday wish goes out to Sean Kane, who is turning 46 years old.
Ooh.
Sean, this is for you.
Sorry, Sean.
Pussy. Lick that pussy. Lick that pussy good. Sean Kane, lick that pussy. Lick that pussy. Lick that pussy good, motherfucker. Sean, hope you have a great birthday. Hope you've ordered some Blue Chew. And at age 46, you're going to need Blue Chew to keep hard. I know that.
They all love their Blue
Chew.
Chew.
You and Chris of World Championship Wrestling and back in the day and listening to WHW.
What the fuck was that?
Happy 46th birthday. All my best to you. Keep listening. Keep that dick hard. And remember, lick that pussy. Lick that pussy. Lick that pussy good. Yeah.
What?
Now that's how you fucking Cameo.
Was that CGI?
No. Lick that pussy. Lick that pussy. Lick that pussy good, motherfucker. Tony Schiavone's a fucking filthy man these days. I told you that was good. So on that note, as you slowly suckle on that bottle of beer and try to hold in your...
I don't have much to say. There's nothing to hold in.
Are we giving Tony Schiavone the final word on our show this week?
It's gonna... I don't know... I'm...
Lick that pussy good.
I'm still working on what I want to bring to the table the next time we get together, but I can tell you right now it's going to be tough to avoid addressing that situation. It's going to take me a while to process it. We could make this a 2-hour episode if you just want to sit here and watch what happens to my brain.
Well, if the video is still existing on the interweb by the time this gets up there, I will definitely post the link, and you can watch with glee as Tony Schiavone wishes that we would all just lick that pussy, lick that pussy, lick that pussy good, motherfucker.
Yeah, so I guess we might as well, while we're at it, throw the Tony Schiavone video link in there too. Can we throw that up?
I think that'll have to, again, assuming it doesn't get pulled down. Speaking of links, did we get to the end of the show without mentioning our own?
Well, where you're going to find all this stuff, if you're watching the video, that's awesome. Please subscribe. Please turn notifications on so that when episodes come out, you know about them right away. But the cool shit that we looked at will be in the comments section. You can also follow us on Twitter at Shoedogg, letter M. It is Facebook prison for the Shoedogg and Mike page, but we tweet, we keep you guys in the loop. Please follow us on Twitter. Please give us a like on every episode you listen to. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's appreciated as well. You can also find us on SoundCloud. As I mentioned before, we like to keep everybody as available as possible. We want to make sure you're getting quality shit. So if anything changes, we'll keep you abreast. Otherwise, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Twitter, Shoedogg and Mike, check us out. And we'll see you again real soon.
Remember, if you have an hour to waste, waste it with us.